I'd like to call the special meeting of the Bristol County Water Authority Board of Directors to order. Today's Wednesday, August 6, 2025. It is now 5:03. And tonight we're going to be discussing, there are no action items on the agenda. We're going to be discussing the Pawtucket Pipeline project, and we have Data Group here tonight with Nick Corvello here to make the presentation, and I'm sure we'll all have a bunch of questions for him. I did hand out a little outline of issues and comments and thoughts that everybody has had about the project and wondered about over the last maybe 6 months to a year. And I suspect that Nick will be able to answer 99% of them. But some of these are going to fall squarely on our shoulders as we learn about the project and require decisions that we have to make. So I'll turn over to the director. I'll turn it over to Nick. Okay.
Well, fair enough. Appreciate that, Juan. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and making the time to discuss this project this evening. I know this is not one of your regularly scheduled meetings, so I really do appreciate the time here. My name is Nick Corvello. I'm a vice president at Beta Group. We're the design engineer on this project. We recognize that this project has been going on for some time now, and we appreciate that the board has some questions about how this project will be completed and when. The primary reason we're here today is to discuss the status of the design project, its various elements, the review the project schedule, discuss some of the project challenges we've had to date, as well as some of the obstacles of which we are currently aware, review some elements of the recently submitted contract amendment number 3 that you guys have in front of you, and discuss how we move this project forward. Just a little bit about how we got here. As you know, both the authority and the city of East Providence purchased 100% of their water from Providence Water. Each system is serviced by their own cross bay pipeline. Prior to any work on this project, the system shared an interconnection, a 16-inch interconnection along Veterans Memorial Parkway and South Broadway, but the connection wasn't large enough for one system to completely supply the other's demand. Neither system has a backup water supply, so both systems are currently completely reliant on Providence Water for all their water supply. From our understanding, Bristol County Water and the city have been working to create a connection to a secondary water supply since the early 2010s, and I suspect that it's probably been in discussions even longer than that. If nothing else, the leak in the East Bay pipeline back in 2019 just accentuated the need for a redundant water source. Ultimately, the project goal here is to construct a new water transmission main to connect the Pawtucket Water Supply Board as a secondary water supply. Phase 1 of this project was substantially completed back in 2022, initiated back in 2020, and installed about 10,000 feet of water main between Bristol County's pipeline on Pawtucket Avenue and the city's Kent Heights water tank. Currently, water is flowing through that pipe from the city system at Kent Heights and dumping back into their, feeding the system, East Providence's system at Pawtucket Avenue, just downstream of their emergency pumping station. The overall cost of that construction was right around $6 million. Sadly, construction costs have increased substantially even since 2020. Phase 1 effectively acts as a larger interconnection between the two systems, but it has limitations due to the reduced diameter of the authority's pipeline from the recent repair efforts. It also doesn't address the source water redundancy issue that we were talking about earlier. The design we're here to talk about tonight is the Phase 2 of this Pawtucket Pipeline project, which establishes the interconnection with the Pawtucket system. The project requires an installation of about just under 24,000 linear feet of 30-inch diameter water main to connect the Phase 1 piping that currently ends at the tank to the Pawtucket East Providence city line on Pawtucket Avenue. Now, alternative routes between the tank and Pawtucket were evaluated. The proposed route is the shortest of all the routes that we did evaluate and that minimized natural and man-made obstacles to construction. Phase 2 consists of a variety of elements, what we're calling a roadway design, which is effectively the majority of the pipe that's being installed, proposed to be installed within the roadways. And that consists of plans to navigate existing utilities, manage and in some cases detour traffic to facilitate the construction, and restore the area after the pipe installation. The route also contains 4 what we're calling critical crossings, each requiring individual design efforts to navigate the obstacles that we're trying to traverse. Additionally, the project requires an actual interconnection into Pawtucket system, as well as a blending facility to blend the water received from Pawtucket to match the current water chemistry that Bristol County and the City of East Providence currently have within their system. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about each one of these efforts and kind of where we stand. So as we previously mentioned, the majority of the 23,700 feet of pipe falls within city streets or state roads. Actually, most of it falls within state roads. We're talking about approximately 19,000 feet. We prepared a 60% roadway design back in May of 2024. Mike and Steve have reviewed and commented along with the City of East Providence, and we've incorporated those comments into our ongoing 90% design effort. We also met back with RIDOT back in December of 2024 to discuss the project as they requested, and requested that they review the plans and comment on the 60% design. At the time, they seemed very willing to do so, and we were hoping to incorporate some of their concerns in advance of an actual utility permit application submission. But to streamline the review process, unfortunately, we chased RIDOT for a few months there, and they didn't review anything. So we felt compelled to just kind of move forward, and we'll deal with any of their comments or concerns during the permitting process. We also coordinated with Rhode Island Energy Gas, who recently completed a gas main replacement project out on Pawtucket Avenue. For our purposes, this is the area between, let's say, Waterman Avenue and Marietta Ave, which is just north of Taunton Avenue. So that stretched right in front of the high school. And we updated our plans with their new assets, because we didn't have that, they weren't installed at the time that we had done our initial survey. We did note that the area of Pawtucket Avenue, where Rhode Island Energy installed a new gas main, is slated for resurfacing on the state's transportation improvement project by 2028. Unfortunately, no other portion of the work within our project area, state road-wise, is identified on the tip for improvements. So what that means for us is that roadway restoration for all the work we're doing in the city streets is going to have a significant resurfacing component as part of the project.
Excuse me, so what you're saying is that the Pawtucket area where the gas main went in now, are we going to be able to get pipe in the ground there before they resurface and redo that whole road?
So on their transportation dashboard, they identify the end year as 2028. So what that means is if we can get in there before 2028 within that stretch, then that's a possibility. I know we've had that discussion with RIDOT before. It's just a matter of the timing works out or not.
But 2028, 2 years from now, I'm guessing, are we going to have a contract in place ready to even put that piece in prior to the state coming in and redoing that road?
Maybe, maybe not. It's unknown at this point. Really, it's going to come down to permitting timelines and things like that, and if this project is constructed as one contract right now. So there are a lot of unknowns to that, but it's certainly something that we can further discuss. Currently, our permitting team is working on preparing a freshwater wetlands permit application through DEM. We've got a couple areas of the roadway design. Most of the roadway work has wetlands. Some of the roadway has wetlands on either side. Most of the work is exempted from a permit application, being that it's in an existing roadway. However, we've got work at the 10-mile river crossing and right at where we cross Interstate 195, where we do have an impact and require a permit. The work at 10-mile river also requires a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers due to the wetland disturbance proposed in that area.
So has anybody started to process any of these permits?
No, so we're in the process right now of pulling together that permit application for submission to DEM. We've had some preliminary conversations with DEM about what we're proposing to do. The last time we spoke with them was probably about a year ago, Steve, I think. And they were on board with the concept and principle. We're working with our specialists now to put together a restoration plan that we feel would be deemed acceptable on their end.
Do we have permits for anything yet?
We do not have permits, no. We're in the process right now, and as we go through what our goal is at this point is to try and get a utility permit application into the Rhode Island DOT, which would cover most of the roadway which would cover the roadway design and a couple of the critical crossings that we have. Then that is upcoming. Most of the time, most of your agencies here want to see work that's nearly completed. So we've done some preliminary legwork with some of these agencies to get them on board with what we are looking for in concept. Actually, I take that back. We did work with the Providence and Worcester Railroad, and they had agreed with our design associated with one of the utility bridges. So I take that back. We do have something in place for one component of this project. And
Just, my thoughts are, there's 5 miles of line going to go in, the water line. Can we take pieces of it, such as the railroad crossing, award a contract for that and have that done? Can you do the bullet under 195 and get the permits for that and have it done so we can at least say that we're expending funds and going forward? This is like waiting for from the sounds of this waits for the end result of your 100% drawings and specs and everything, and then we go and start permitting. Yes.
the goal here would be to get to about 90% design, so that there's some room for folks to review and comment and provide their comments at that time. That is a process, and I certainly do appreciate that has taken quite some time. A lot of that has to do with just the size of the project, the fact that we're talking about really one project and one contract. That's how it's always been. I've always understood it to be. And that kind of.
And that's the way we've always, since we're talking about this, jump in here, and that's the way we've always looked at it too. But as we're sitting here and the board is feeling somewhat like we're stalled, and it's not a reflection on data. It's just that we feel like we're not making any real forward progress. And I think what you're bringing up about the permitting and the time frame for DOT actually argues better the reverse of what you were saying, Bob, in that let's not look at the difficult parts of the project, like crossing under a railroad or crossing under 95 or going under the river. Let's look at the easy parts of this project, and that is this portion that where the gas company has been, and DOT will come back sometime after 2028, that if we can get in there, and as an engineer, I never want to simplify anything, but if there's something that's simpler or easier to design, it would be a pipe in the ground versus a pipe that has to go under a highway. And so maybe the focus could or should be, not making a decision here, but could or should be, let's see what we could do. Let's say maybe we advance that portion that the gas company has broken ground on, and we get our pipes, get the design done, get the permitting, which I would think would be the easier permitting to get, unless somebody says, I need to see the whole project, well, then the whole thing is down the drain. But if we were able to segment something, we could get something moving and minimize maybe some costs if we get it in the ground where the gas company is. But let's move on.
Oh, okay. I mean, we can discuss that.
Yeah.
What percentage of the design is completed?
So we're right now we're approaching the 90% design associated with the roadway work and 2 of the utility bridges. The structural design associated with the bridges are effective.
That's not the complete job.
The roadway design is about 90% of the job. Yeah.
And that's since 2022.
I'm sorry?
That's since 22, we signed the contract for design.
Actually, it was even earlier than that, I believe, right?
Well, your initial initial contract was signed back in 2018, right? But the initial focus was the design of phase 1 and construction of phase 1. So this phase 2 didn't, I don't think, really started in earnest until the completion of phase 1 was constructed.
About
So I would
2022
say
or so.
I would say around 2022 at some
That's
point.
still
It's probably
3 years.
So,
And
yeah.
and we're not even at 100% yet. Everything we don't get in the ground today is gonna cost more tomorrow.
Well, you're not wrong.
I know
about
we've
that.
had a lot of setbacks and a lot of different problems, but gee, it just seems to me that this whole thing is dragged out way too long. I mean, we're in a modern era, you do design with computers today, you don't have draftsmen and people like that anymore. What the heck takes so long?
Yeah, it is a large project. There are a lot of moving parts to it for sure. I don't disagree with you that this project has taken longer than I think you folks would have appreciated. It's certainly taken longer than I would have hoped as well, for a variety of different reasons, both internally with us and external factors that we're dealing with. So I certainly do appreciate your frustration. I'm equally frustrated with certain parts of this project in terms of how long it's taken. If you'd like, we can talk about. Okay.
Sorry,
Let's
we
get
just-
through your presentation, and then we can talk about some of the individual components.
Fair enough. We have 4 critical crossings, as we had talked about earlier. The first of which is a trenchless crossing across Interstate 195. Proposed design is about 660 feet of 60-inch steel casing pipe installed by microtunneling. We've got a launch shaft that's approximately 40 feet deep to initiate the tunneling in a full bedrock face. I know we had done some investigation work. Our earliest investigation work was around 2022, 2023 out in this area. The shaft's located between the off-ramps between the East Shore Parkway and the Warren Avenue exits off of 195. Every time you're stopped going into Providence, going westbound, if you look to your left, you'll see the spot that we're looking at. It's
That's the exit from 195 that puts you on to Warren Avenue in East Providence. That takes you to the shopping center in Seacon to the right. And if you go to the left, you go to CVS or the other pharmacy that's across the street. Or the other
That's right.
That's on the other side of the street.
That's right. So Rhode Island DOT has a maintenance facility right across the street.
Across the
from
street.
there. Yep.
And I assume that DOT must own the land that's where you have your
Sorry.
where the pipeline is going to start, and then across the highway goes into the backyard of some industry over there in the parking lot.
That's right. So we've had preliminary conversations with the folks over at 25 Fairmount Ave, which is the parking lot associated with the exit shaft there. Currently, design plans are being reviewed by our geotechnical sub, where we're looking for concurrence on the approach and for them to prepare specifications associated with the microtunneling related items and the supportive excavation associated with it. One of the complications, so this area here for the majority is located within the interstate layout, within the federal highway layout. So as such, the permitting associated with this work will actually go through Federal Highway, the Federal Highway Association. The permit itself is routed through DOT the same way that the other main utility permit project is routed through, but we've decided in our conversations with DOT to do 2 permits, one associated with the majority of the work that's reviewed in-house with Rhode Island DOT, and the second permit associated with this crossing, which will be routed to Federal Highway.
So again, okay, we know we need a permit, or when we come up in that guy's parking lot, you need approval to use that property.
Correct.
An easement.
An easement.
Has that been, other than a discussion with that guy, do you have a piece of paper floating for that guy?
We have had discussions, we have had some preliminary easements. I know that your team has engaged your attorney to start developing documents. I'm not quite sure exactly how far along that is.
Now, when you say you're talking with the company that's there, do you know if they actually own the land?
It's actually owned by a real estate company, and those are the folks who we spoke with.
Oh, okay.
There's actually a...
So that would be a question that we asked Joe. When is he gonna put that paper?
No, he is. The bigger issue though is we don't really know what to tell these folks as to when this thing's going to get started. So we're kind of a little hesitant in getting these things all kind of wrapped up until we know exactly when we're going to get moving on these things.
And you'd end up with two easements, one a temporary construction easement, I guess, and then a permanent easement as well.
Correct. And then the permanent easement probably wouldn't be established until after the pipe was in the ground. I think that's typically how that's...
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Just an agreement for access and then finalize a permanent easement.
Now, where does that portion of the line there from the circle on the map, okay, I guess that's an exclamation. No, where does that tie in? Is it tie in on Warren Avenue or?
So, yeah, so it's...
Is that further in your?
No, that's all right. So the Kent Heights water tank is back down over here. So we have about, I think it's about 7,000 or 8,000 feet of pipe.
If you go back to your
I want to go back one slide.
There you go.
Here we go. So that installation here, you can see the up-ramp here. This location here is where that circle is located on the little plan here. So we've got all this work here on Warren Avenue and the work going back to the tank site here to get to...
And that's all in the street?
This is all within city streets till you get to Warren Avenue, which is a state road. And then when you come across into the parking lot, which actually comes through another parking lot here associated with the Imperial Pearl over on Waterman Avenue. A couple easements associated with the Aquas Corp and I think it was W. Carr over here, which is a little off the street, and you've got the East Providence Police Department right here as well. So we have easements proposed for a few of these properties here before we get back into Waterman Avenue and Pawtucket Avenue all the way up through up to the city line.
Country Day School there, and then East Providence High School.
Correct. Yep. And then you've got Taunton Avenue here.
Right.
That stretch that we were talking about where Rhode Island DOT is looking to pave by 2028 effectively runs from Waterman Avenue here up to about this location right here.
So
it's a small stretch.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
And I'm sorry, I'm not oh, never mind, I see it now.
Oh, what were you looking for?
No, I was looking at the cross-section there and trying to understand a couple of things. Obviously, the dark gray is the pipeline itself, right?
Correct, yeah. So effectively, we're proposing to have a secant pile supportive excavation to serve as a launch shaft for the microtunnel and boring machine, which will tunnel from the circle to the square underneath the highway. It's deep, it's about 40 feet deep, and we did that intentionally so to make sure that the tunneling is in a homogeneous rock face, at least until you get to the point where you're on the other side of the highway, where rock seems to drop off at that point.
Now, do you know if there are wetlands above the highway?
So there are.
Not in the parking lot?
So there are wetlands here. You've got the wetland buffer here
Yeah.
at the launch shaft. You have wetlands that cut across here, a small area that's been flagged, and then up along this area as well. There's a drainage culvert that runs across Waterman Avenue out to an area to the east. I'm not quite sure exactly where
So
that
you need
is.
a DEM wetlands permit?
Correct, that's what we were talking about earlier. So the permit that we're pulling together is effectively for the entire project, even though the majority of the work an impact is associated at 10 Mile River and this area here, and this area over here. We are within paved areas. We're not cutting through wetlands per se,
Right.
so the impact is really minimal. Minimal in these locations. Okay. So, trying to get back to. folks here. There we go. Second crossing that we were talking about is the 10-mile river crossing. This particular crossing has some history. Initially, the pipe was to span the river on the east side of the vehicular bridge, which you see in the picture over here on the left, similar to the sewer pipe, which crosses here on the west. We had evaluated a pipe span on the west side of the vehicular bridge adjacent to the sewer due to some improved accessibility. The work here is over on the Agawam Hunt Golf Course property. That sewer has an easement that's been in place for about 60 years. When we spoke with folks at Agawam Hunt, they had zero interest in moving forward or allowing us to construct on their side without significant discussions further. We find ourselves moving back over to the east side of the vehicular bridge. At that point, we had conducted a type study to evaluate the various designs, potential designs. There we go. To review the potential design types. Ultimately, we decided to go with an independent pipe bridge on the east side of the full span over the water body, as opposed to what was originally proposed, which was basically pipe on concrete supports, which is the way the sewer is set up. The type study indicated that the construction costs associated with both types were approximately the same, but the current design mitigates the environmental impacts a bit better and keeps all the supports outside of the normal water course. As I mentioned, the permitting team is currently working with the design team for the required site restoration elements, and we're working to put those two permits, the wetlands permit and the Army Corps permit, together. We have incurred some additional design costs associated with that design effort and some geotechnical stuff that wasn't included in our last amendment. These costs are included in amendment number 3, and I'll go over that amendment in its entirety later on in this presentation.
Let me just make sure I understand this, because I think it's obvious. Because it says independent pipe bridge on east side, full span of the water body.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhat over here on the right side of the bridge, there's going to be, our water pipeline is going to be going across the river at a height above the river.
Correct.
Are you pointing to that?
Well, I'm pointing to the bridge. I'm pointing to approximately where your water pipe will reside.
Yeah. About that height. Okay, because it certainly is a river that floods from time to time. There is certainly a very active 10-mile river association group that will speak about this. And I'm just wondering, I think what you're putting in there is the way to do it, but I'm just wondering how much trouble we're going to get ourselves into with local outcry and even maybe DEM issues and maybe Corps of Engineer issues or something like that.
Sure, and that's understood. I know we've run this concept by DEM when we were talking about wetlands, and they kind of agreed that, despite the impacts to the adjacent wetlands, this appears to be the approach, the better approach, certainly a better approach than working within the water body itself. The sewer pipe on the opposite side of the river there actually has a support that's in the middle of the river, which is something that we, in looking back at it, we're trying to avoid.
Do you know
You're going to put a base on either side of the river, basically, and span the river with one pipe, or is it?
So effectively, what we'll have here is we'll have a pile-driven support column, basically with a pile cap. The independent pipe bridge will be basically 2 steel I-beams, and your water pipe will sit between it, so that the steel beams themselves will act as the structural members, whereas previously, where we had the pipe on concrete supports, the pipe was acting as the structural member.
So the span is how? Any idea? I'm just looking at it.
I believe the span right here, the opening itself was about 40 feet So this opening right here across is about 40 feet. I think that to stay out of the water course, we're in the 65 to 70 foot range. That's the overall span.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that already designed?
The structural component of that is complete. Yeah.
We're just waiting for permitting then.
We are in the process of pulling together a restoration plan so that we can get it in for permitting. Yeah. The location of this bridge is actually technically within state right-of-way. Because the right-of-way extends beyond here. Anything beyond the river back here is actually City of East Providence property as well. So effectively, the utility permit application that we're in the process of pulling together will incorporate the permitting, from DOT's perspective of this bridge. Okay.
When do you anticipate the submission to wetlands?
We're hoping to get that in the same time that we get the submission into DOT. So we can talk a little bit more about the crossings themselves and moving forward, but timeline seems to be a forefront on everybody's mind. So schedule-wise, this permit application to Rhode Island DOT, the utility permit application, we're targeting the end of September to try and get that in to those guys, which would be the roadway design and those two bridges, as I mentioned earlier. When we talk about other permit applications, there's a self-verification notification to the Army Corps of Engineers associated with that bridge, and then the overall freshwater wetlands permit. We're also targeting the end of September to get that into those agencies.
Why is the Army Corps involved?
The Army Corps is involved because we actually have disturbance to wetlands. Okay, so anytime you actually have disturbance to the wetlands, Army Corps is involved because by definition, wetlands are considered navigable waters. We don't have any work within the water course. It actually would have changed the type of permit that we get from them. The permit that we have, the self-verification form, as we've coordinated with our permitting specialist, is actually a reasonably simple permit to obtain. So that's just to skip ahead a little bit. That's the immediate timeline for a couple of those permitting submissions.
When we're all done with this, can you send BCWA a schedule of events with some dates on it as to when these are going to plan to be submitted? And because I get confused myself when I say that our lawyer is going to do some of it, and I never realized that until the last meeting that he raised his hand. He says, "I'm doing that." So
Yeah,
I'd like to see who's got what ball in their court. What BCWA is going to do, what Beta's got to do, what the time is to submit, and then we can start. Well, then you're at the mercy of DOT and anybody else that sits on stuff.
Well, like I said, and I'll say it later in the presentation. I'll say it again. Stephen has been very adamant with me about the fact that we got to control the things that we can't control. Right? We can control design schedule. We can't control regulatory process relative to that. So the sooner we can get something in, the sooner we can start getting it into other folks' courts, and that's what we can control at this point.
How many different organizations do we have to get permits for?
Well, we can list them. So we've got Rhode Island DOT, which is the main one, right? So because 19,000 feet of pipe within the roadway, we have DEM relative to the wetlands and the Army Corps of Engineers for the wetland disturbance that we have. We have Providence and Worcester Railroad, which actually is Genesee and Wyoming Railroad owns both lines, P&W and their rail line. We need to get utility occupancy permits to be within their right of way. Excuse me. We need, I'm trying to think of what else. The Rhode Island Department of Health for modifications to the water system. That permit is actually the one that is going to take, I think, a significant amount of time just relative to reviewing. We've got some preliminary approval from them associated with the blending procedure from the water quality studies that we had done about a year and a half ago. City of East Providence had their own study done. I don't know that they put that in front of the Department of Health at this point. As you'll see as we go on, one of the wrinkles in this project now is that we've relocated the blending and control station based on discussions internally and with the city. And the talk is to combine the station into one facility. So now we have, initially we were talking about 2 separate facilities at 2 separate locations. Now we're talking about 1 facility at 1 location, which kind of complicates things relative to what the Department of Health will permit and who's responsible for that. But they're going to have a pretty big hand in this as well. Outside of that, I would say the contractor will have to obtain some permits from the City of East Providence just for general street opening. These are the ones that I'm thinking off the top of my head.
Federal highway.
Federal highway associated with the interstate crossing. So there's a variety. There's a number of different agencies that.
So dumb question, is there any precedent or way to overlay the importance of how these things get approved? And is there some
order?
Is there some order? Is there some function that says this is a priority project? You agencies have to pay attention to what's going on here, or is this all a piecemeal thing to all these half-dozen organizations?
You know, it's just for example, we tried to reach out to DOT and put in front of them the 60% design that says, hey, we'd really like to get your comments, and if there's anything that you guys see that we should be incorporating, we want to do that before we submit the permit application for you guys. Try and streamline the process. And while they indicated that they were willing to do so, it really didn't seem to work out that way. Generally speaking, I think these guys are as short-staffed as anybody else, and so they're dealing with what's in front of them. So when they see a permit application, that starts the clock. There are some regulatory timelines associated with that. So we've reached out to some of these agencies to try and get ahead of some of these things and to put it on their radar ahead of time. And the discussions have been good, but we haven't really had that reciprocated in terms of having comments come back in our court.
But there's no, I think getting back to your question, Rich, there's no like an umbrella state organization, it's like the planning department that kind of coordinates all the different pieces. My experience is that they really talk well with each other.
And again, we're not trying to get legislation here, but is there any concept of lobbying for some of this stuff in terms of, again, maybe that's your guys' role, is to do the communication, the lobbying, that things are coming, but is that another party that should be part of this party that is in constant communication? Lobbyists may not be the right word.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think we need to get it into these people's hands first, and then if we feel that it's getting necessarily stalled for some reason, I mean, that's an avenue you could take.
I think that's probably right. It's just that may be a good approach once we get to the point where we're talking with the Department of Health. Just given the importance of the project.
I mean, the ultimate, what's going to happen is, anticipate funding is going to come through Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. And whenever you access those funds, you're going to need an approval. They're going to want an overall project approval from the Department of Health for a drinking water project funded through the SRF program.
Right, and I believe you guys are on the project priority list relative to that, correct?
They're on the project priority list for that.
So, talk a little bit. We were talking about crossings. Sorry, Juan.
No, I was just going to say.
So the third crossing is another utility bridge. The design is very, very similar to what we have over at 10 Mile River, independent pipe bridge to get across the Providence and Worcester Railroad crossing. This is along Pawtucket Avenue, just north of Bishop Street, right around St. Margaret's Church in that area. The bridge and the associated pipe are all located within the state right-of-way on Pawtucket Avenue. So as far as permanent installation, there's no easement required at this point. We will likely require some temporary easements just for constructability purposes with 2 properties, one in the south and one in the north. Site access here is the biggest constructability challenge, just given the construction of the vehicular bridge and the narrowness of the rail bed. There may access along the railroad right-of-way from Ferris Ave may be required. We're going to need some coordination with the contractor and need to get some further discussions with the railroad relative to that. We ultimately, they've approved the concept. They are acceptable of the design. We have that reviewed by them. At this point, we're in the process of needing to submit for a utility occupancy license at this point.
So, I know Providence Worcester used to be really awful to deal with. I hope that since they've been bought out, that they'll be easier to deal with. But I'm sitting here looking at the railroad track, and being a train guy. I said independent pipe bridge on east side. Has P&W said, okay, we'll work with you on your crossing, but have they said, yeah, we like the idea of a crossing, an independent bridge going over our right-of-way. I'm just wondering if they would prefer going under the tracks as opposed to over the tracks, just to make it more challenging.
The access in this area is already pretty challenging.
Yeah. I see that in the third thing there.
Yeah, the ability to go underneath the tracks, I don't think has been evaluated based on some of those site constraints. It is.
And you mentioned, I don't know if everybody else knows where this is, but it's a tough street to drive on, and you got to watch out the photo enforcement of speed in this area as well.
Oh, just north of this bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right near the school, right? St. Margaret's School.
Exactly, and they get you even on the weekends when the school's closed. I know. But the three-dimensional aspect of this is tricky.
So
my layman's viewpoint of the whole.
So if you're looking at the plan that's shown here, north would be going this way, right?
Right.
The city of Pawtucket would be up here. Bishop Ave is over here. Where you get your speeding tickets is right around over here. So again, two pile supported columns with two I-beams and the pipe sitting in between. That's what the design is currently called for here.
No, it sounds simple and relatively simple to do and function and so forth. I'm just thinking that having something hanging over a train might not sit well with them figuratively.
We have approval. They have a minimum clearance above.
And they're limited by the bridge itself, so as long as it's at that level.
We've actually gotten a variance because part of what we wanted to do is make sure that the pipe sits within the profile of the parapet wall here of the vehicular bridge, just so it's one thing that people aren't looking at. It provides a little extra protection for the pipe, God forbid.
So is it going to be hanging off the bridge?
No, it's
not attached
independent
to it.
bridge.
It's independent.
Right, so it's two pier supported columns with a span similar to what we had over at the river.
Because there's certainly a lot of bridges that incorporate water pipes into the design and so forth.
Correct. But I think the issue here was space.
Yeah.
So there's already a pipe that's currently hanging from this side as it is now, without getting into DOT and redesigning this bridge. Okay.
So this was a simple way.
The last of the critical crossings that we were talking about is another railroad crossing. This is over at they're all owned by Genesee & Wyoming at this point. Genesee & Wyoming had bought out Providence and Worcester. For our own sanity, we call this one the Genesee & Wyoming, and we call the other one the Providence and Worcester. This is located at the northern end of the project limit. It's just south of St. Mary's Cemetery as you're approaching the city line. Okay, we're heading north. North is off to the right of your screen here if you're looking at the plan. Similar to the 10 Mile River crossing, this pipe crossing has some history as well. The original design concept maintained the pipeline within the roadway. It was always opined that we were going to install this by trenchless methods, by microtunneling. In our original geotechnical memo with our sub, they had actually recommended using the same diameter pipe so that there's some economy of scale associated with the cost of the mobilization of those machines, because the mobilization with those machines is really a large portion of some of that cost. The section of Pawtucket Avenue here, as I'm sure you guys know, is it's a lot narrower here than it is further south. When you get further south, you have 2 lanes of traffic and whatnot. Is one travel lane in each direction here and a parking lane off on the northbound side. When we started putting in all the components, our launch shaft, the receiving shaft, and the knowledge that construction here is going to take about 3 months, it became evident that we were going to have to shut down at least 1 lane of Pawtucket Avenue in this area for about 3 months, recognizing that DOT may take exception to that, and also Gorham Lane is a private way out here that leads back to Colonial Mills and some of the industrial areas in the back there. We were having difficulty maintaining truck turning radius and access with our current location. So we decided to work to pull the launch and receiving shafts off the roadway to maintain traffic during that construction. Other alignments were evaluated, going across the roadway here, a little more perpendicular, but we've encountered other concerns like the proximity to the cemetery property and maintaining access to that travel lane. So the current proposed alignment maintains traffic on Pawtucket Avenue the way it has, and the truck traffic for Gorham Lane. The launch shaft isn't nearly as deep as it is over at 195. We're in soft ground at this point. Our geotech sub is looking to see if we can go even shallower. As I mentioned, the geotech sub is currently reviewing the design plan similar to the utility bridge, utility occupancy license that we talked about, what other permits are required. Utility occupancy license is required here as well. We've identified the property owner associated with 70 Pawtucket Avenue, which is the large industrial parcel bound by, I guess it's New Road and Pawtucket Avenue. I think it's Eaton Electric is over there, the Worth company, Sky Zone is all part of that same property. They also own this small parcel here, so we're working with the same property owner. We've reached out to them, we sent them these plans, preliminary discussions, because this is a reasonably new alignment concept. We have not heard back from them. I was talking with Steve earlier today that we may have to send a letter to try and gain a meeting so that we can talk about the ins and outs of this access here. And ultimately, we want to identify their concerns and what we can do to kind of facilitate access for the property as well as for the construction efforts.
So there are 4 crossings, to railroad, a highway, the river. But this is probably the least problematic one, except for traffic control.
Except for traffic controls.
But you're working in a public street.
Yep.
You're working off the street, on the railroad tracks. You're doing the micro tunneling, so that should be somewhat uneventful.
We would hope it would be uneventful. Anytime you do micro tunneling in soft ground, it comes with its own inherent risks associated with inadvertent returns and slurry release, and we've had that happen before too. We're doing our best to try and avoid it. It's part of the reason why we're as deep as we are. There is a wetland area here that we are crossing, but we're going underneath, sufficiently underneath. We showed the profile for you. We're about 25 feet deep there. So we would hope that they would all not be problematic, and that no one would be less problematic than the other. But this is certainly the shorter of the 2 tunneling reaches, for sure. I would say that.
So the work's on private property too.
What's that?
The work's on private property.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we talked about the roadway design, we talked about the 4 particular crossings. At some point here, we actually have to make a connection into Pawtucket system, because that's kind of the purpose of the project here. Pawtucket currently has a 12-inch water main that within Pawtucket Avenue. It's actually Prospect Street on Pawtucket's side of the line. The initial plan is to make that connection into that 12-inch main. Right now, the city maintains an emergency interconnection in that area. Based on the last discussions we had with the city about it, they would plan to decommission that emergency interconnection upon the establishment of the transmission main. As such, the city suggested that an existing meter vault, which they have currently here, could be potentially repurposed for this project. Additional discussions are required with, the city of Pawtucket, or Pawtucket Water Supply Board, and the city of East Providence to make sure that that's amenable. But that's the current plan right now, would be to repurpose that meter vault for purposes of the pipeline. It's our understanding that Pawtucket will need to install a larger pipe to provide that targeted maximum demand somewhere down the line. We're making provisions so that this pipeline can be maintained, or this connection can be maintained while that larger connection is being established at a later date. But regarding ongoing items here, this is just requires some additional coordination with the city and Pawtucket for acceptability and some of the Pawtucket water specific items.
So that the larger, the combination of that, you would want them to put in the 30-inch pipe on their side at some point in time?
At some point in time. At some point in time. I think this is, I know Bristol County had PAR run some analysis, it was probably about 2 years ago now, about the capacity of that 12-inch pipeline. They actually have a pretty robust system, Pawtucket does, up in that area. Initial hydrant flow tests were somewhere in the order of about 1,500 gallons a minute with a pretty limited pressure drop. Static pressure up in that area is up in the higher 90s. So at least initially, to make a connection for activation and provide a minimum flow within that pipeline, 12 inches is sufficient. But somewhere down the line, Bristol County Water is looking for up to 3.5 million gallons a day. I believe the city is also looking for the same. 7 million gallons a day out of that 12-inch pipeline, maybe a little bit of a stretch. So at any rate, as one can see, between the roadway design and the 4 crossings and the connection, as a significant investment is required here to bring water from Pawtucket down to the tank site. And even after that, additional efforts are required to make the water usable for the authority and the city customers and not disrupt the current system chemistry that you guys both maintain, right? The original design plans located at the blending control station, like we talked about earlier, down at the Knights of Columbus property, towards the beginning of the Phase 1 property and where your wholesale connection comes across the bay. We've now moved to discussion where we're looking for one blending station to be located up at the Kent Heights tank site. Further, the city provided the results of their water quality blending analysis that they've done on their side back in May of this year. Our chemistry design consultant, GHD, has incorporated that into a conceptual process building design. We're reviewing that right now before the design advances to a preliminary design stage. Sorry. Oh. Bear with me here, sorry, folks. As a result of the location shift, the desire to incorporate the blending needs into one station, this blending control station is probably the furthest portion of the project from completion at this point. With the additional, we had our treatment methodology previously approved by the Department of Health. I'm not quite sure where the city of East Providence has done with relative to their water quality investigation or analysis with the city. Regardless, we put together additional coordination with the Department of Health that's going to be required. That aside, we're talking about agreements in terms of use that need to be established between Bristol County Water and the city in terms of compensation, who's gonna own it, who's gonna operate it. None of that stuff, is affecting, the design, but it's all stuff that the Department of Health is gonna inquire about when we go through this permitting process, and we should have some terms of engagement with the city more or less established. So to kind of summarize where we're at with the various design elements, like I said, the roadway design, which again, the majority of this project is approaching 90% design. We're approaching 90% design with the two utility bridges. All of that work, once we have a 90% design package, will be submitted to DOT as part of that utility permit that we were talking about. And the target date for that is the end of September. So we're really close on that end. On the trenchless side, we have plans in with our geotech sub. They're roughly at about the 60% design stage. We do need some additional coordination with the property owner for the Genesee and Wyoming, not to be confused with the Providence and Worcester Railroad side. And then the other two project elements that require the most work to advance, maybe the interconnection, depending on how coordination with Pawtucket goes. I don't really see that they're going to take exception to what is being proposed as long as the city is still on board with it. But then the blending and control station, which is still kind of in a conceptual design at this point, advancing to 30% based on the relocation and the integration of the city's efforts.
So when you get 90% till October 1st, I'm going to see 90% drawings here for everything.
You will see 90% design drawings for the roadway portion. For those elements, yes.
Okay. So is it, at that point in time, the specs for everything are going to be associated with it? Your specifications for everything?
We will likely have, the technical specifications certainly will. I don't know if we're going to finalize kind of like the bid setup or anything at that point, because I think it may be a little premature. So if we were to pull together a full 90% design package, I kind of don't want to.
Having design done and having plans and specifications for bid are two different things.
No, they should come as one.
You'll have to, the technical specifications will be complete.
Like you're going to get a package, 90% package of all your specs, your drawing set, and then that will build off to 100% at some point in time. But is that the point when we're going to let out a contractor go out for bid? So in November of this year or something, somebody's going to put together something from BCWA.
Well, that would assume that permitting is all in place.
But those things have to go in parallel. You're going down one street, you're doing all the specs for it, you have the design, you got the...
I agree with what you're saying, but...
why are you saying something else?
Because it requires something else to be said. And I think, maybe I'm wrong, I can be wrong, I've been wrong at least once before. But let's not count them. Plans and specs are done. You've got to have, most of the agencies aren't going to sign off on it until you get the plans and specs to them.
Correct.
So if you got them to us and them at the exact same time, we still don't have biddable documents because we don't have the reviews and the permits we don't know what those permits are going to contain that could affect the designs.
There may be conditions that are imparted from the permitting process that
if something comes to us,
into
we have the perfect design in our minds on October 1st, and it was hand walked to all the different agencies on October 1st. It doesn't mean on October 2nd we're going to have it ready to go, or November 1st even. Realistically, they're not going to go
that's your last 10%. When you go from your 90% and you blast it out and you get your request for bids, whoever wants to bid on it, and then those processes of what you get back from your permitting request, because you don't know if somebody's going to nail you with an easement then.
So you have April 26th, I'm not sure if I can read that.
That's April 26th, yeah.
Yeah, and that's at the final end of DOT permitting. And,
So,
and that's your estimate.
well, no, so for clarification, anything here is really unknown, right? So again,
Right.
we're controlling the things that we can control. We're preparing applications to submit to the appropriate agencies for their review. How long they take in review
Right.
is outside of our control, and I really don't know how long it is.
And so I want us to have realistic expectations here. If Beta is able to get these things done by October 1st, the question then is, how long is it going to take? You know, if Nick here knocks on all the agencies' doors every day, how much faster is that going to take? I don't know. But we're still not going to get stuff probably done until, or ready to go out to bid until early 2026.
You know, effectively, again, this gets back to, we were talking about one project, right?
Right.
So the one project would include all pipe, would include the 4 crossings, would include the interconnection, would include the blending station,
Right.
right? Is that,
Yeah.
that whole package would need to go to the Department of Health. If for nothing else, even if they didn't have to review technically anything, just for the certificate of approval for SRF funding.
Now, what is your experience, or what is your feeling about, you know, we talked about the different crossings, so we talked about the pipes in the street type things, that's 5 different things. There are contractors who put pipe in the street all day long, every day of the year, but how many people can go and do micro tunneling? And how many people can go and do a self-supported utility bridge, and so forth? And so it seems to me when you start to talk about those specialty areas, you can go out and say, okay, one project, we want you to do all of this. And there'll be a bunch of people who would say, I would bid on it, but I can't find somebody to do the micro tunneling for me. So, or I can't find somebody to build the crossing of the river. And yet, if we then split it up, and I'm guessing that, okay, pipe in the street project and 4 different crossing projects, or maybe it's one crossing. You're looking for somebody who's going to do micro tunneling and another one that's going to do bridges. So it's 3 projects, say. And maybe I would think to put pipe in and not simplifying anything, but that's a relatively simple thing in comparison to the other 2 types of projects. I would actually say that the bridge things are probably relatively simple things. But I don't know.
You know,
So, but if we put it out as a big project, and we're talking about a project that's going to cost many millions of dollars, $50, $60 million, we're going to have some kind of contractor that's going to be able to handle that. And that is going to be limiting in and of itself, I would think.
it is. We're you know, we're currently engaged with the project, not on a much smaller scale, but of at least equal complexity with the Narragansett Bay Commission that has a significant microtunneling component to it. We completed one a few years ago as well. And yeah, the availability of microtunneling contractors or trenchless contractors, certainly locally, is challenging.
Yeah.
You know, most of these guys are coming in from different parts of the country.
Yeah, and there are more and more of those type of projects going on all the time. It seems like I'm always reading about one here or there. And it would have to bring probably people in from outside.
Who
which is
makes
fine.
the decision on what type of contract you guys for?
We do.
We do, the board.
Is there a flip side of risk, which is if you break it into pieces, that the pieces are too small and you can't get people excited about them?
Well, we put out projects here, a number of them, I can't name them, but I'm always amazed when we get one bidder, or 3 people show up for the pre-bid and then we get one bidder. We haven't had a lot of competition for some of our projects, so that worries me. And, you know, maybe it's that it's just not big enough, you know, or it's too big. I don't know what kind of reaction we get to our projects, but putting out asking for bids on a $60 million project, there's gonna be people wanting to do the project, but looking for a lot of partners.
How many, like, I mean, is there any locally that would take on something like this, like, the whole thing as a whole?
So, when you start getting into those types of numbers, it really comes down to bonding capacity at that point, right? So, I mean, I can tell you that a lot of the larger utility companies locally in Rhode Island have the capacity, the bonding capacity to take on a project like this. We're working with, again, I mentioned we're working with an Aggregates Bay Commission currently on a project that's part of their Phase 3 CSO program, and John Rocchio Corp won that bid at it was a little over $50 million. So they have the capacity if they're done by that point. I'm trying to think of some of the other contractors. Bond Utility.
So Rocchio was the GC.
Rocchio is the GC.
They brought in the
Michael Tunneler, yeah.
Michael Tunneler.
Yep. Yeah, they brought in a variety of different subs. They brought in Keller to do some supportive excavation work, some dewatering efforts as well. I'm trying to think, but the major portion of their major subcontractor, there would be their microtunnel that they would subcontract to. And for most of these types of projects, that's typically how it's done. Utility contractors as general contractors generally work out better from a management perspective. The microtunneling contractors, if you were to put out a contract that was almost exclusively microtunneling, these guys are really good at tunneling and not really good at managing, or that's what we've seen. So that would be the challenge. They need someone they want to come in and do the work as opposed to dealing with the paperwork and things of that nature. So the method of having one large project with a utility GC is typical for a project like this.
Nick, can I come back to something you mentioned on the project schedule?
Yeah.
We should just clarify. When we're talking about the Pawtucket interconnection, you mentioned something about Pawtucket still needing to approve or still in agreement with something. Can you just clarify what you meant by that?
Yeah, sure. So I know you guys have an agreement with Pawtucket, and I think that may be where the confusion is for purchasing water, right? So there's an agreement to provide 3.5 million gallons a day. What we're doing here is we're effectively trying to tie into their system. And so we just need to have coordination with Pawtucket about the manner in which we do it. If what we're proposing to utilize East Providence's interconnection is acceptable to them, as opposed to making our own connection onto their particular pipeline. So it's a coordination effort that we just need to dot our I's and cross our T's with Pawtucket with. If that clarifies.
I thought we were in agreement with something.
What's that?
I thought we had an agreement, right?
Well, we have an agreement that they would provide X amount of
Water, yeah.
water. Right. And then they're gonna wanna see the plan to connect.
So effectively, what we're showing here is what we need to have Pawtucket sign by.
But East Providence, I mean, the connection that connection, you see that box right kind of right in the middle, that was actually completed by East Providence, not that long ago, I would say.
No, it's 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years ago. And that's a connection, but it's closed. That's for like extreme emergency only type of connection.
Due to that differing chemistry issue.
Right. So, but once this pipeline comes up and meets that, and that's no longer needed by East Providence because now they're always going to have a flow coming from Pawtucket. So East Providence essentially said, well, just tie into the connection that's already made. That makes it easier for us.
Yeah. Especially because it's already a metered connection.
Right.
So again, I know this was, you were asking for a schedule to be provided. We'll PD that. We'll send this over to Steve, and he can disseminate what we have shown here. And again, anything we have shown in the light blue trailing in the permitting end of things is really just what we would consider to be review time, and is in no way an estimate of what we think it's going to take or how long it's going to take. It could be much shorter. Some of them could be longer. We just really don't know.
But those, the permitting piece, there's like what, 8 of them, 6, 8 of them?
Mm-hmm.
So this schedule shows me that other than the blending station, I guess, everything should be done by December to have the permits submitted?
That's correct. That's correct. So we would be into federal highway by end of the year. We would be the Genesee and Wyoming crossing would be in for utility occupancy license by the end of the year.
Now, see, it would seem to me, and correct me on this, that we're going to create a bottleneck for ourselves by, say, submitting all of this into DOT, into all the different agencies at the same time, and say, hey, we want all this approved. Now, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe, 6 weeks later, we'll have everything approved. Whereas if we split it up into smaller pieces and said, this is our priority, this is first priority, second priority, third priority, or something, we might get faster movement on it, because some of them might be seen as, oh, that's a minor thing, Again, I go back to pipes in the street. Some of those utility crossings are nothing. Going under 95 is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Crossing the 10-mile road might not be so bad. I still think public input might cause some problems, but that might not seem so bad. It's a separate, distinct bridge. And similarly, that might go tunneling on off Pawtucket Avenue. There are other issues associated with that project, but but from a regulatory viewpoint, well, the DOT one in that area might be tricky, but maybe there's some segments of this that could get pushed through quickly. I don't know. I'm obviously a school of let's get something in the ground quickly.
No, I certainly appreciate that. I think the complication from my perspective comes where I have a piece of pipe that I've installed in the ground that I can't use until everything's done.
Right, and it sits there for 6 years or 7 years or something like that, and then we've got to go in and find out that there's some problem with it, or we've got to clean it out. If issues or whatever.
Realistically speaking, even all the pipe that we're talking about can't really be utilized until we have a vehicle which we can kind of transform that Pawtucket water that we have into the water that's currently within our system, right?
But going forward with little pieces minimizes the inflationary impact. It also minimizes the impact of getting something in the ground before 2028, when DOT is going to go respond to the gas pipe that will be put out there, and then tell us, well, you can't put anything in there for another 5 years or whatever they do these days. But I remember in the past they used to have a moratorium
of sorts, right?
Of a 5-year period of time. You're not digging up our roads again. So I just wish they would do work on Hope Street between Warren and Tupelo. That's a mess.
Yeah, always complaining.
I know.
But the splitting it up also gives local, smaller contractors a chance to.
Yeah, I don't know.
something.
I agree with you conceptually. Yeah, it's more doable project for smaller contractors. Maybe it becomes a more management problem for the agency and consultants and such. But we gotta give them a challenge.
Well, I think part of the other problem is location, right? This is in terms of being in Rhode Island, we don't really get a lot of outside contractors coming from outside the
Yeah.
state to work with here. So, the Rhode Island contractors will always say they need more work, they want more work. You're seeing
Yeah.
bids with one bid being opened and things of that nature. The contractor pool, unfortunately, seems to be dwindling in terms of the folks who actually do this type of work in Rhode Island. The ones that we have are certainly capable of handling a project like this. But agreed, there seem to be fewer and fewer, and enticing other folks from outside of Rhode Island to bid some of this work just doesn't seem to have gained a lot of traction over the years,
Yeah.
from my personal experience.
We estimate a time to be able to go out and put a request for proposals in.
You mean bids?
Well, you gotta put, the BCWA has to put together a request for proposal. And it's gonna include all the specs, the drawings, and the statement of work. It says, this is what we wanna do, this is where we're gonna go. When can we think about initiating that? Is it next year? Is it the year after? If you're already into 27,
Well, I mean, I guess the question is, if we're done in
No.
April of '26, what's the norm for permitting it?
That schedule is limited by the paper's width,
Hi.
by the paper's width.
Yeah, just,
You could change that
but
to
how
April
long is,
27.
what's the norm for a design review? Is it a year, is it 6 months, is it 18 months? I mean, there's gotta be some norms here.
In terms of what? So
Reasonably expect to get a permit by.
DOT, I think will fit on that page for our utility permit. Federal highway may extend off the page. DEM wetlands and the Army Corps should fit well within that page. DOH is a wild card
Yeah.
based on just what I've been hearing from other folks.
but is DOH required permit to be in hand before you build the thing?
Yeah.
You have
Yes.
to have their approval?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, is
And,
it,
and you need their approval for the funding.
is their issue one of staffing? I know in the past it has always been one of staffing.
For
The Department of Health?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And I'm not suggesting we do this, but I'm trying to remember back in the good old days. It seemed to me that the Bay Commission was paying for staff at DEM for permit review because there were so many projects going on. And I'm wondering if we found if that would be a cost-effective thing to say, well, we'll pay for hiring somebody if you can hire somebody.
Well, it took, my God, do you remember how many months it took just for them to get back to us regarding them, because we wanted them to approve the concept of us blending the two waters
Yeah.
before we even started this thing.
I don't even know when you
It
guys
took a long
initiated that.
time.
It
just
took a
for
long
that.
time for that. There was a lot of iterations based on staff turnover. Staff has stabilized there, but during the time, the Hope Street pump station as well was an extended review period, and then
Yeah.
just the pump
I
station.
mean, because I remember we even offered to, we would fund a consultant if they didn't have anybody to review the chemistry involved in blending Pawtucket waters and Providence water.
Do a peer review effectively.
Public peer review.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is an option.
And they have contracts with other
But
consultants.
Rich, you just don't know. I mean, like for instance, the dam project, you thought all the environmental groups were behind it. DEM wetlands took over 2 years to get that approval from
I remember when we were having these discussions with Jim Marvel over in East Providence, and we were talking about Department of Health. He had a cleaning and lime project that was sitting in front of them that seemed to take, it was over a year.
them. Yeah, that's what they had, that was some serious staffing issues at that time. Right?
Yeah, they
That's
did. It was a couple of years
that's
ago.
been rectified, but,
So is there, I keep shooting at a star here. So is there any chance that we are gonna still be here and be able to let a contract out? Not saying that when we're gonna start digging and getting done with it, but let the contract.
Well, I feel a certain degree of comfort seeing this on paper and hearing that design 90% is going to be essentially complete in the October-November time frame, and that it's in the hands of the permitting agencies. And if we even met this, the WIP's schedule of April 26th, that, okay, on April 26th, all permits are issued and we're ready to go. Okay, now we need the plans and specifications that we put out to bid. And you wrap it up, you repackage it, and that gets put out there. The question in my mind comes back to the size of the project and what we get done when. And I think those are the questions we have to, we either put our faith in the process that it's going to get done relatively quickly, or we're going to say, let's put our faith in an unknown here, we're going to split the project up into little pieces because we think a big project's going to scare people. And well, what happened, splitting it up, there's no perfect answer.
Of course, I'd argue with you.
I would hope so.
If you go with one project and you bring in a general contractor and you inform that contractor, you have to present your subs to the prime and whoever you're going to do it with. And then you tell that general contractor, for instance, the Pawtucket line's going to go in here because we're going to beat the 28 deadline for being redone with that. But the general contractor controls his subs and he reports to us as far as budget, schedule, and any deficiencies. And then you have one belly button to push. You don't have to worry about going out, and if you sub out, Pawtucket Avenue, for instance,
Yeah.
you're gonna have that railroad out in Oregon that's missing the tracks. But you need to have one guy that you're gonna go after, and he's gonna report to us monthly, well,
I
the
agree
BCWA.
with you.
But
That's the benefit of having one. You
Yeah,
have
you
like
can-
you have one company.
And you could direct that
Contractor
guy,
is
how
responsible.
you want him to dig, or where you want him to dig first. Hire that contractor first.
We've got to get over the question of permitting.
Right.
Who's going to
That's
go
a-
get the permits?
Well, the
See,
permits are
The
going to be...
designer, the contractor? Who's
No,
going to go
but
get
the-
these permits?
Well, okay, that would be Beta. In
So-
conjunction with it, the permits get submitted by the BCWA, but that's with the assistance of Beta.
That's correct.
And those would be starting to get the way out the door in the November, December timeframe, going to the different agencies. And it would seem to me what we need to do is sort of talk to if we're not doing it now, we need to be talking to the agencies on a monthly basis and giving them an update as to where we are so that they don't react to, why didn't you tell us a month ago this was coming, kind of thing. We keep them in a loop, send them monthly letters, updates, here's where we are, you can expect something. Here's our schedule right now, we're hoping this is going to be done, we're looking like it will be. So, and the next month we send them another one.
Yeah, and again, we tried to start that process ahead of time with varying levels of success, but we can certainly reach out to DOT's utility permit engineer to make him aware of the schedule and to what he can expect.
Yeah, you can't control what they do, but, you can try to communicate, right? Is there any
Radio tomorrow morning.
Is there any precedent or benefit
Call in and see what you
or
can do.
legally can you do this, given procurement guidelines that they have? But talking to certain contractors before this process gets further down the track, in the sense of just getting their input on some of the issues that we're talking about, how this would get staged, any issues with design? Is
I
that,
mean, I think they've, you guys must talk to people, right?
People have reached out, I mean, just from knowledge of the project, people have reached out to us.
You know, I'm just a guess on your part to this question is, the time frame for doing that micro tunneling under I-95, and I'm not talking about from now to when, I'm talking about the day you were able to put a shovel in the ground, and so it comes popping out on the other side of I-95. How long would you think that would take?
So when we were talking with DOT initially, or what our original concepts are, to excavate or to install the supportive excavation and excavate the shaft on the launch side, excavate the shaft on the receiving side, install the MTBM and tunnel. We said that we needed access to that site, the launch shaft site, for about 6 months. We think that that's pretty, I actually think a conservative estimate.
Yeah.
You know, realistically speaking, it's probably 4 to 4.5 months worth of work,
Right.
would be my guess.
So that's not a lot of time. That's not a lot of time to get that project, that portion of the project done.
The complication with that particular element, because there are always complications, is gaining access to that
Yeah.
launch shaft site.
Yeah. Then you have the wetlands issue on both sides of it, and sometimes those blossom into something else.
They do. I think we feel pretty confident relative to the minimal impacts that we have to the wetland areas over in that area. Really, it's if we can't use that site as a launch shaft, there are very, very limited options at that point to get from one side to the other.
So that's what,
You know, the DOT had allowed Barletta Corp., who was doing the Washington Bridge rehabilitation work, to use that site as a laydown area. We talked about it a little bit here, that we had kind of coordinated with those folks so that, you know, we might be able to either jointly use the site, or they would be done and we would program that tunneling work at some point within the overall contract. That was before they shut the bridge down. You know,
yeah.
enter the Washington Bridge saga. You know, if they're going to allow that contractor to use that site now, I mean, they're talking summer of 28, even that. What does that mean?
Yeah, and I would think that anything that says I-95, I-195 on it, that comes across the desk of anybody is just going to get everybody excited over there, and there are going to be 150 meetings on it and so forth.
The other element of it is that, you know, except most of this work is taking place within Pawtucket Avenue, right? Because of the bridge effort, you know, what's the trickle-down effect there? Pawtucket Avenue is the primary thoroughfare in the city of East Providence. DOT, you know, that's taking a lot of that overflow traffic that would have been on the bridge. You know, DOT, in our last conversation with them, they basically deferred construction activity within the city of East Providence to the city. So the city has to be the gauge here for what's acceptable and what's not acceptable relative to time frame. Hopefully being part of the project would help that, I would hope. But you know, there are certainly others. Heck, you know, we went out there, fun fact, we were trying to install borings, do borings over at the 10 Mile River. It took us 3-4 months to get on the drilling contractors.
They threw you out of there, right?
What's that?
They threw you out of there initially.
The day after we mobilized. You know, you show up on Monday, get our platform set up, take down the guardrail, they shut the bridge down Monday night. We delayed it another 3 months by the time we got back out there to actually do the borings, once DOT had kind of done damage control there. So, you know, direct effect relative to what we had going on, and you know, it's kind of this lingering effect of, you know, everybody finding their own new way. You know, I'm coming from the other side of the bridge to get down here, so I certainly felt that on the way down myself. So
I don't want to discourage any questions or discussion. We've been here an hour and a half. I think it's a great presentation, Nick. We have a lot of information that we didn't. If we had it before, we didn't know we had it before. We definitely have it now. There's some questions that we still have, and I think we're probably at a natural break point in this meeting. There are no action items on the agenda, so we can't take any action. And we can put it on this coming monthly meeting's agenda for further discussion and/or action. I'm not sure what the action would be. I'll say to everybody, if you have some specific action you think that would be doable, let Steve or myself know what that is, and we can try to put it into some form.
I have one question, one last question. So from this schedule, again, I think part of the reason we're having this meeting, right, is I think we all have a sense of urgency to want to see this thing
Yeah.
go along, right? And I guess the question for you would be, is this as fast track as this can get, or is there something else that we could do, whether it's more resources or a different strategy or whatever, I guess would be my question.
I wish I could say we could do it faster. I'm disappointed that it's taken as long as it has to even get to the point where we are. Having the project as one project with this really kind of the octopus with a lot of tentacles to it, each tentacle is kind of moving at its own pace and is running with its own restrictions and challenges and things like that. And so I can tell you that we're trying to address them as quickly as we can. The linchpin of the whole thing being this blending control station, because having just shy of 5 miles pipe in the ground and not being able to use it does nobody any good, especially if you spent a lot of money for it, right? So that is really kind of the complication where I'm running into at this point. In terms of being able to move faster, I'm pulling in the resources that I have available to me to do so with my subcontractors and stuff like that. So this is about as best as I can do at this point. Proceeding on the course that we're proceeding on at this point.
And then as far as action items, he hasn't gotten to the actual amendment,
Right.
but that's going to require board approval at some point.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
That's, the big part of that is the mixing station, right?
Correct.
The majority of that is the mixing station. So we had advanced the blending and control station when it was at Knights of Columbus up to about 30% design before the decision was made to move it and integrate the city of East Providence into it. They're running into the same situation where their costs from were some years ago, and they need to be updated as well. But the effort associated with it, like I said, heck, I can pull the costs there. They're looking for another $290,000. It's actually $260,000 for them, and about $30,000 for us for the work we've spent, and then additional work coordinated today, through completion. Their actual effort is, I believe, about $420,000. They actually have some budget remaining, obviously, from work that they had not completed. So they're looking.
Who is they?
I'm sorry, they is our chemistry subconsultant. That's GHD Incorporated.
Okay.
So they're a subcontractor. They work for us. Okay, just like.
So they're your interface to DOH?
They have had some interaction with DOH, but we are interfaced with DOH at this point.
So you and Steve go to DOH with here's our plans and this is what we're doing?
Mm-hmm. If they have questions relative to the chemistry or blending or the analysis that we've done, then we would have GHD assist us with that, because they are our experts on that end.
Like, I would like, the other thing, I see that the permits are listed here. We gotta have 5 or 6 of them. Okay, let's do it here. We have a timeline. I'd like to know how many BCWA's on the hook for, and I don't even want to call it a permit, but the easement thing. How many easement letters do we have to get out and
So
do it rather than is that there's nothing?
Well, let's just leave that to the director to get.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I get that.
That's what I mean. Part of it is, I didn't realize until the last meeting that Joe raised his hand, I'm doing that.
Yeah,
I had no idea that that was happening. I thought it was all part of the permitting process and coming through. I didn't realize we had to go out and get the easements. So how many?
yeah, well, once the routing was finalized, and then we had individual engagements with each of these property owners, and we got a comfort level with each of them to finalize the route. The next step now is for legal to draw up the documents. And
So is that
So the easements,
How many are there?
Yeah.
there's the one in the industrial.
So,
behind
if
the-
we want to walk our way through it, we've got, you'll need the easement over here.
That's one.
This is state property,
Yeah.
right? So you've got the easement here at 25 Fairmount, you've got the one here for Imperial Pearl, you've got a one across the street here at Aquas Group, one for the WC Car building. City of East Providence has the police department, but I don't know if you get a separate easement there. When you start coming up, running north, there'll be, that's permanent easement, right? And then I don't think that there's another permanent easement until you get to, well, if you take one for the city of East Providence on their property at 10 Mile River, right? So the southern portion of that, but that's
There's no easement there.
then you don't have another permanent easement until you get to the GWRR, Genesee Wyoming
So
crossing.
the railroad crossings, the one, the first one, the southern one, that one.
The bridge,
Yeah, that one's within the DOT right of way, so that
Correct.
doesn't require us to have a separate easement, but we must have to have something from DOT there, I would think.
that was part of the utility permit process.
All right.
So if you are within, it's no different than being within a state roadway.
Okay.
So you apply for the utility permit to be within the street or within their right of way.
Okay. And then we have the other railroad crossing, that's on private property, so that we would need easements in that location as well.
You're in private property and then underneath the railroad right of way, which is what requires the utility occupancy license.
Okay.
And how,
Bless you.
and how these easements become acquired is typically Joe develops what's considered an access agreement, construction access agreement initially, and then permanent easements are finalized once the construction is done. That way they can, know exactly where the pipeline lies, and that can get recorded into their deed.
I didn't realize how many, there's 6 of them.
6 of them.
So we had Joe talk to us every month.
Where they stand?
He's got a lot of time.
He's got time now. He's got
The
time.
other big cases office.
He's been busy with another issue with us, so.
He's got another check.
That doesn't sound good.
Any other?
No, it's been good. It's a good thing for on our part, but the Providence Water rate case. So he's been busy with that.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts today?
Thank you very much.
So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time. I know coming in separately for this is not always easy, but I appreciate the opportunity. I wish we probably should have done this in hindsight some time ago to talk about where we've been. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Thank you, gentlemen.